up. And today I am stepping in for Tracy, who's our wonderful host. And we are talking about the impact of emerging technologies in shaping the modern workplace and it's affecting shaping the future of work. So, with that, quick intro. In today's kind of rapid evolving technology landscape, we're all witnessing a convergence of emerging technologies such as blockchain, AI, VR, and many other. We're seeing that this integration of these technologies shaping the future of entrepreneurship, innovation, and social impact. We are going to discuss how these impacting and being leveraged to address empowering entrepreneurship, societal challenges, and driving positive change with one of our wonderful subject matter experts, which I'm going to allow him to do the intro for himself. Xavier, please
Hello
introduce
guys.
yourself.
I'm Xavier. Xavier, born and raised in France, Spanish background also, from Spanish family actually. So born and raised, educated in France. So I've got two cultures in my DNA actually, French and Spanish actually. But my accent in English is more French. I think it's more as a French guy. So I am myself a consultant and a marketer, with an international perspective. Worked more than 15, 20 years actually, essentially with startups and SMEs. Actually, very interested by startups. Actually, I'm very close to the founders and builders and makers now, right?
Mhm.
And basically that's myself. Very interested also now in AI. How is it shaping, changing marketing actually, innovation actually, as producing services and products also. That's problematics that I'm very much interested with actually. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you for that. We're going to get back to it. Benjamin, would you mind introducing yourself also?
Sure. So quick intro to me, long vita, but in the end, always somebody who always challenged the problems with technology and always said like, yeah, it can be done better. That's why people hate me and love me. Otherwise, I am advising 17, 18 different governments around the world and ministries and economic development agencies and institutions. I myself, I also founded my current company. That is pretty much my Mona Lisa, what I always say. So I'm working on my masterpiece as an entrepreneur that is more than digital. It's actually a startup that should solve a lot of issues around economic development, education, and international growth. And I myself, I'm also doing a lot of keynotes. And as a futurist, I'm also around the world active. So I have a lot of different hats on. And otherwise,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, amazing, amazing hats, by the way. Both of you have impressive backgrounds. And just a little bit about me for the audience. I know you both got to know me a little bit. So I'm a former Amazonian. I was leading sustainability and supply chain as well as Web3 projects globally. And before that, I was leading GE for business development and strategy. And currently, I'm working with actually kind of convergence of IRL in real life and Web3 in the funding space, working with sovereign wealth funds, large private equity, and looking at it as an ecosystem. How government projects, large projects can help startups and the startup innovation in this ecosystem and where we can place them because we're gonna need IRL and Web3 coming together. And how do we wrap the funding around it in non-traditional ways to help those startups innovate faster for the larger regions, larger projects, larger corporations, sort of. So, with that, now could you share a project or the initiative you're involved or you did before that excited you the most? And what problem or challenge that it tried to solve and what opportunities that came out of it? So, I'll turn to you, Zevi, if you want to
Yeah.
start.
Okay. Well, two projects that are exciting me quite right now. First of all, this kind of boutique I mentioned to you. Actually, I'm creating
Yeah.
with partners actually because I see that AI is shaping is reshaping marketing, especially in productivity with generative AI. So I'm quite excited about that. Well, there's a buzz, there is something very exciting. Everybody's mentioning that. And I really think it's going to change a lot of things. My focus would be not only on marketing and sales, productivity, cost effective and stuff like that, but I'm also very much interested by what I call innovation, AI-powered innovation. I mean, how will you in the future create products and services, actually, small, medium companies, actually, or even bigger ones, actually, or startups, actually, create new products and services, actually, with powered by AI, actually, That's quite interesting. I think many challenges are happening there, actually. So that's one thing, actually, that I'm creating constantly. Also helping a friend, actually, he's been a trainer for many years, actually. He's interested by the problematic, actually, of training the trainers, actually, with AI also, bots, assistants and stuff like that, to better measure also the efficiency of training programs, because we see in many companies, they put you in a training program, it's quite vague. The trainer is not necessarily an expert, a professional trainer. So this is one problematic. I'm just helping them. And then the third project that's a Web3 project. It's a stakevaultnet.com, actually, related to staking. There's a trilemma in staking, actually, the trilemma of scalability, security, and user friendliness, actually, that we want to approach, actually, with a StakeVault network, actually. This project is aiming to transform the staking ecosystem by creating a secure, inclusive, and efficient blockchain platform. With the following key innovating points, actually, an enhanced network security via innovative node authentication mechanisms, a little bit techy, but I'm not going too deep further, actually. An innovative staking mechanism, such as time-weighted staking, where the duration of staking influences reward calculation, interoperable staking, where we can stake other tokens, and automated risk staking. Enhanced user experience with a streamlined interface, tutorials, and maybe including chatbots, actually, to support the audiences and the clients, actually. And what I quite like, that's part of my culture, or I'm quite decentralized in my culture, actually. So decentralized governance and inclusivity. So that means staking for many, actually, empowering validators and token holders by providing opportunities to earn rewards and contribute to the security of the network. So that's basically what excites me now with this Web3 project. But now, what I can say to conclude, I've been in the Web3 for the last 7 years, and now I think I'm getting into the intersection of Web3 and AI, actually. That's where am I when I am now, actually. Yes.
That is awesome. Same question to you, Benjamin. What project or initiative you were involved in that excited you the most, or you're currently involved in? You have many, I know. And what is it aiming to solve? And what opportunities do you see coming out of this?
Actually, there are a lot of different projects where I'm really excited about, because I see a lot of different projects from a lot of different levels. I mean, what I always love is also that we actually use technology to give more people access. So that's also about internet access to the underserved. That's also about inclusivity, for example, of the lower incomes. It's not fancy AI. Actually, nobody needs AI, and everybody's just making a big fuss around it. The bigger impact is actually when we really tackle the underlying problems that we are having, and that has to do with access to food, that has to do access with housing. So we are seeing, for example, also 3D printing come into the housing market. So there is a lot of things coming up, and also renewable energies will have a very big impact on the world, because that will also change the world, how supply chains work. So that is something that is more on a generalistic level, very interesting. For me, myself, I'm usually involved in economic growth. So how do we actually grow economies? That's actually also why my company exists, because I was frustrated at one point. And one of the most exciting things is actually we just launched the first real business diagnostics platform in the world. So when we do it at scale, that is actually the exciting stuff about it. We cannot just help companies to understand what is going on in my company, because usually you cannot afford to have hundreds of consultants running around in your business, right? So you're always at the mercy of somebody selling you some bullshit, and then we are in kind of like AI here and blockchain there. Honestly, nobody needs that. The 99% of businesses don't need any of that. For them, it's kind of like, yes, we need to survive. I don't even have a website. I don't even know how to actually do processes. But what do I need to do to actually run my company? I have 20 employees. What should I do? So I guess here one of the biggest challenges is that we don't really have good access to easy to understand, explainable stuff. So that is including from pre-vested, pre-vetted information so people can understand what is actually going on. The second part is also what we try to fill at the moment with this gap. So kind of like, where am I? Where should I be? So that I at least know where my priorities in the business world. And what we created pretty much is also a fully explainable model. So you can actually, for the first time, not just measure the health of the company in 1,400 different points, but actually the health of the economy. So it becomes also for governments, it becomes very visible what is happening. Where can we help? Because there's actually, I didn't even know that 1 to 5% of all GDP per world is being invested into economic development. So governments trying to actually help businesses to do better, but usually it's kind of like just spreading thin because nobody knows what's going on. So we have some stupid webinars around AI because that's currently on vogue, right? But in the end, businesses don't really have the help they need, and sometimes it can be also misleading. So that's why I'm pretty excited, because for the first time, something becomes explainable and measurable. And when it's measurable, you can also improve it. And that is a very important part of the whole part. So that's why I'm excited about this project, because literally I could bring explainability to economic development, to economic growth, and I can literally grow economies. I mean, that is the first time I can literally at scale grow economies. Because very simply said, if I can grow a company by just 1%, and I can do that for 10,000 companies, it's literally growing the economy by just actually giving the right information. So yeah, that makes me excited.
That is very exciting. I'm excited too, just so both of your points too, and even what Xavi was talking about. I deal with so many startups in the funding world, right? And they're so lost and they don't know what's available to them, but they have a great idea, right? And I agree, by the way, AI or consulting, when AI first came out, I said, oh my God, all the consulting companies are going to go out.
Yeah.
But what was lacking, what is lacking still, this entire government help that's available for businesses, none of the startups, or very minimum, are just aware of this. So this is, both of the approaches are just amazing. So now, reflecting on all of this that we're conversation is leading to, which is going to be yes, there's government help available, but there's some challenges, right? Either regulatory, social, labor, education you touched on, in terms of that, Benjamin, or even the perception that you are encountering, or you have encountered, but you overcame. And if you are currently just dealing with this, what is the way of addressing them? How would ecosystem will help it? Or here's my solution kind of help this. So let's start with Benjamin this time and then go to Xavi after.
Yeah, okay.
One of the biggest challenges is, I guess, I mean, that is where I need to actually come into the counter position to Xavier, because we don't need more startups driven by AI. That's the same with content driven by AI, because AI at the moment is not really creating anything meaningful. So the problem with a startup is, first of all, idea is worth nothing. So second of all, execution is everything. Execution gets easier, but it's still just 0.9%. So the idea might be 0.1%, the execution might be 0.9%. 99% is actually the go-to-market strategy, actually finding the market, etc. And the solution will not be to just blast out AI-driven bullshit to everybody, and we just plaster the internet with all the cold email campaigns and with all the content, because that's not actually creating value. So this will be actually creating a way more a bubble of, I want to be cool and everybody wants to be cool. The problem was not really to build a startup. The problem was never to have an idea. I literally have 37 business ideas on this phone. I didn't execute. So the problem was never this. The problem was always the execution part. And when we look at innovation ecosystems, it's usually what innovation ecosystems are working the best, those who actually can help the founders to execute. So it's always about, I mean, why is Y Combinator so successful? It's a very simple principle. It's even a mafia, pretty much like I come in there, everybody needs to buy my product. So pretty much they create their own ecosystem. They pump up all the numbers until when they are actually founding and raising, everybody sees that like, oh yeah, big number. And that is pretty much how it's working. So a good ecosystem is kind of like it's smoke and screen to a big part. So you always need to actually have a very differentiated view on such ecosystem, but also when it comes to growing these ecosystems, it's very important to actually see the underlying factors. So you lose pretty much 99% or 90% of all the innovation because people cannot afford to start it. It's usually only richer persons coming from a wealthier household with a better education, with a better family attached to it, who actually make it to this. So you lose actually up to 90% of all the innovation because nobody can start it because they say like, if I start this business, I cannot even survive 1 year. So you lose out pretty much on this social inequality. The second part where you actually lose out on innovation ecosystems is of course also this brain drain. And I guess this is a very big topic for a lot of governments. Because in the end, one of the biggest schemes ever in history was the H-1B visa from USA to actually literally drain all the world from the talent. And that was an easy way for Silicon Valley to actually gain access to talent. And that is a very, very important part to that. So I just try to keep it short so Xavier can also say something, but there is actually a lot of different topics we can address there.
No,
Agreed. Xavier, what about you?
That's cool that we disagree, actually. It's like Trump and Harris. But it's okay. It's in a more elegant way, actually. I partially disagree, actually. If we think AI as a simple wrapper of generative AI stuff with the nonsense and stuff, it's useless. But then I will talk as in my perspective as a marketer, actually. As a marketer, actually, I see two big opportunities with AI, actually, in marketing, actually. Personalization at scale, actually, customer journey and so on. Actually, it's already being done, actually. That's the predictive and analytical aspect. Meta is doing that. Amazon is doing that. They're already doing that. What is changing now? Is the generative AI. And this is production, actually. It comes with production at scale of content, actually, no? And I'm personally with the startups, actually, helping me with the content creators actually creating and streamlining actually the process of content creation from research to creation, validation, and publication. Even the repurposing, I'm thinking on agents and stuff like that. Actually, that would include all the different steps. Actually in the repurposing aspect. Actually, that would be transforming the existence database knowledge that you've got actually in different formats and stuff like that to increase awareness and visibility. Actually, that's one of the points that I see on AI. Actually, I don't think it's useless, bullshit, or vague, and I think it will be more and more. And I even see the corporations of the future, actually, the teams will be a mix of agentic AI agents, actually, and human, actually, agents capable to reasoning, actually, to take decisions and interacting with humans. That's what I see personally. Benjamin might not see. That's a discussion.
That's the wishful thinking, sorry to say that. That's the wishful thinking about AI. We had AI since 1969, 1968. AI is algorithms, and the only thing that changed at the moment is pretty much an LLM. An LLM is nothing else than a probability machine giving you out text. So it's not changing anything. And what you're currently observing is actually just this interim period where actually an old world gets a new machine that creates more content. And right now, actually, what we see in the internet is like we already have 70% of machine-generated internet, and it's not scaling, it's not working. So the personalized outreach works so long until everybody does it, and then it's also not working anymore because everybody is spamming everybody. And that is pretty much how we see also such systems working, because personalized outreach was also in the 1980s was already a big thing where we actually has this mail tag and the mail spin tag coming out with the first email stuff, and that didn't also work. We could also say like, yeah, with spin tags we could suddenly send out. The problem is also the AI agent are not intelligent, and the automation aspect for that might be to some part there, yes, But the problem is for decision making, you would need something else, and we don't have that at
Yeah,
the
but
moment.
it will
That's a
come.
very
It will
big
come.
part.
It's a matter of time. Benjamin, I agree. I agree. There are two things. What happened since 2022, actually, generative AI. And with generative AI, it's not anymore a matter of prediction and analysis. AI was all about that, actually. That's where Facebook created its business model, probably Amazon, to analyze the recommendation and stuff like that. But now with the generative AI, what's coming, actually, with the LLMs, actually, NLP and the improvement in NLP and transformers, actually, that's production of content. We're talking about production and all the biases, the ethical problematics and stuff like that, actually. There's a lot of challenges and problems coming with that, actually. Restructuring your data, actually, to interact with vector databases and stuff like that. So that's many challenges for corporations working on the data that are, there's a massive amount of data that is not structured properly for the vector databases and so on, actually. So data, privacy, ethics, labor markets, upskilling, that's what I see as many challenges.
I think you're both right. And I must say, in terms of the approach, I think, and also there are areas that is very, and Benjamin is right that AI has been around since 1960s, 70s. People are just becoming aware of it all of a sudden, kind of like the cell phone technology, right? And in terms of that, you mentioned something, Xavier and Benjamin, too. You are focused on the education part of it, right? And then Benjamin mentioned that he is focused also in one of the many projects that he's doing, access to all, right? So like converging both of it, do you see that kind of creating the path to address these challenges? Because if in the world of technology, right, the underlying stack, and it actually in everything is education, right? But you have to have access to it in order to be educated too. So how do you see that from your perspective? These challenges you both mentioned, I agree with both of you, but by the way, but from your perspective, how would be approached, not even solved, but how would be either governmental bodies or the funding world, how would they help, in your opinion, to accelerate towards the solution?
I leave it to Benjamin, actually, this one, actually.
The first problem with education is, I mean, we have been around this education topic since the beginning pretty much of technology. It's one of the oldest myths what we are bouncing around, that education can be improved. Literally, we are not educating our children more. We had first the radio. The radio was kind of like, oh, you got the best talents and you had the best teachers and everybody can listen to the best teachers suddenly. Did it change anything? No. Then we had the TV, and then it was like, oh yeah, TV, we have moving pictures. Suddenly we can actually teach like from the best professors in the world. We can give you all the info and we can show you even all the content. Did it improve education? Not really. Then we had the internet. So suddenly everything was like, yeah, everybody can access all the information in the world. Did it improve information gathering? No. Education is still the same. The problem is not the technology, and that is why it's always the snake oil selling thing. Like education gonna change with AI? Why? What should change? I mean, we have a limited amount of time we are spending at school. We have a limited amount of attention span. Our brain can only absorb a certain amount in a certain time. The only thing that we could do and maybe should do is actually to create more interest in a topic. So gamification might be a part of it, but also studies show that it's not really having a big impact for the children in a way, because children are playful per default. You don't need to gamify something for somebody where the life is gamified. So literally, we are just creating the next real hype. So if we are really going into education, I guess the best way for education to really work, and that is still something I saw in a lot of different governmental meetings, make school more playful. For example, the Indian government was once actually showing me a very interesting pilot project. The only real, how do you say that? The only real curriculum in the center is meditating and actually switching off, so actively switching off and learning how to disconnect from this digital world. So that's the only real curriculum. The rest is pretty much like, I'm interested in building a robot. Okay, let's go to the robot labs, and somebody is there to help you build a robot. The other one is interested to build a startup and to build an algorithm or whatever. Okay, here is actually the laboratory. Here's something to do. I guess when we make it more playful, that people can more aligned to their needs actually experience something, I guess this would have a big impact on the schooling system instead of actually just having this front teaching. But it's also partly you need this front teaching in a way because everybody needs to have some kind of basic skills. You need to teach them how to calculate, and somebody needs to explain it to them. And if they're just watching at a screen, they're distracted all the time and whatever. So we need to have a person in front of them to kind of like say, like, focus here is something, focus. And that is actually the job of the teacher, and that is not something the internet will take away, or AI or whatever. So education is something that has been always around, that the outcome is always the same till now. So we didn't improve because then radio, TV, internet, and whatever would have already gone far because we have everything on YouTube. I don't even need anything anymore in the school. I have everything on YouTube. If I don't like how somebody explains multiplication, I have thousands of people explaining multiplication. So it's not the problem anymore. And also AI was never the problem. It was never the problem to find something. It's just the problem that we are not animating humans enough, and we are just limited as humans to actually take a certain amount of information per day.
Yeah, I would say I agree with the gamification, actually. I would say again, but the thing is, Benjamin thinks that I think that AI is the objective, is the end. Actually, it's a support. Actually, it's a tool. Actually, it's a tool with the possibilities and challenges. Actually, for example, in terms of education, I see again personalization. Actually, many times we see in the corporation they put you in a training bootcamp, stuff like that. You forget anything. The measurement of the skills you learn, the upskilling doesn't really work. Actually, what can we do? What can we do? Is it only a matter of AI, of tools? Is it AI, some kind of tool that will help, more personalized, will even help the teacher, the trainer to get trained? Actually, that's where I raise some questions. Actually, gamification can be something that quite works. Actually, how do humans actually integrate the message? Actually, and you don't forget after in an e-learning MOOC format or stuff like that. Yesterday, I was talking to my friend, actually, this kind of trainer of trainers, actually, and he tells me, yes, indeed, YouTube, where he learns, actually, it's on YouTube, not even on MOOCs, e-learning or presential master classes or boot camps, actually. So questions to be raised. But I would think actually measurement, personalization, if AI can help, why not? But it's deeper than that, actually. It's even deeper than that, actually.
The problem is you're speaking always as AI pretty much as like this wonder thing there. So what we really have in AI is, I mean, when we speak about gamification, it's a simple weighting algorithm for input versus output. So you actually have an input that is incentivized for an output. That is nothing. And personalization in learning is not happening because how can I personalize to actually explain you multiplying? Multiplying, I cannot personalize multiplying for you. So do you want to have a sexy teacher? I mean, that you can also have at the moment. So it's always nice. People always throw in these buzzwords and everything is kind of like buzzwordy there. But in the end, no, you cannot personalize learning because
why can't you personalize?
And that is it. You can have a better teacher, or you can have a better teacher that's more interesting to you. But in the end, it's the same content that you always have. So there is nothing AI can do that fundamentally changes how we actually process information, retrieve information, and save information. That is the same process all over, and that is why no technology till now changed it in a big way. So the only thing that you can have is that you have a good teacher that you trust more, or that you take more attention or less attention because she's then too sexy, then you're not paying attention anymore. So that is the only thing people pay with attention. That is why I say AI will not fundamentally in the short term, if you just look at the next 1, 2, 3 years, in the short term, people using AI at scale, especially LLMs, etc., they will gain a little advantage over the others until we reach a bullshit level where everybody is just bullshitting everybody with some AI. The problem is then it becomes even more important that you have a good way how to engage with people. So the problem is not to scale something that is unhuman, it's actually to produce something that is so human that you're that you're better than all of those who are unhuman. For example, why are we having more traffic at the moment? Because humans produce our content and we control the human produced content. So that gives a value added to that, because otherwise you can have all this LLM generated bullshit. And that is the same with every startup. If you do that at scale, etc., you're always just producing something at scale. And if it's at scale, it's an industry everybody wants to avoid. And that is what you see for closing.
No, depend. Well, okay, that would be a long debate. Actually, there's two visions of
Yeah,
things.
it would be a long debate, I would say so. But I think, I mean, from both of you listening to you, actually, you're both saying the similar things in different verbiage. You know, Benjamin, I agree. AI is not the be all or end all. It's just the public became aware it's the new shiny toy. And Xavier is saying that it is just a helpful tool. It's not the be all or
No,
end all.
not harmful tool. Let's analyze and study the possibilities and the frictions and the damages. Actually, that's what I say. I'm not so negative, so abrupt as Benjamin. So it's not such a no. Actually, I'm saying there are some possibilities.
I'm not saying no. I say that AI is everywhere and it makes sense. I mean, it's from your camera, it's from your search results, it's everywhere. I'm not saying no. I'm just actually, my job is to understand the future. My job is to understand the next 20, 30, 50 years. My job is not to run a hype for the next 1, 2 years and say like, oh yeah, I'm an AI expert.
No.
That is not my job. My job is to be actually very precise in actually what technology can do or cannot do. Because that is what I do every day. That is why people pay me a lot of money to actually be very precise on the future possibilities and the impact of that stuff. And yes, I'm not running with a hype, and then I'm not saying that everything will be better with AI, because it was already there. Everything you see right now, also before 2022, is nothing else than we have right now. The only thing is that you have now a machine talking to you. So there's not really much of a difference.
I would say the truth.
So with that, then, Benjamin or Xavier, either one of you, in terms of what you learned, and you went to, you know, by the way, I love the going to the grade school level for education, but it is, as a futurist, you would also agree too, that's going to take another 20 years to implement that and getting that to mainstream, etc. Whatnot. But what can we do with what we have at the moment? And maybe take one focus group or one government program or one corporation alignment to it. Like, you know, we can solve, just like you both said it, we can solve what we can measure, right? That is measurable. But instead of like saying, hey, we're going to change this or we can change that kind of a thing, that sounds like almost the politicians as we are going to the election saying, right? But in terms of that, the real, you know, proof is in the pudding, in the action, and actionable could be starting very small. What do you guys see in terms of that? Like, what can you or your circle can impact so that it could have an impact maybe in other areas, in other industries?
I didn't get it, honestly. Yesim, the
So
question.
like what for example, you were talking about, Xavier, about the marketing piece, you know, working with the education or staking vault, etc., right? So when we talked about the education, how do you go about, how is education part of it, you know? How do you make sure that the group or the people that you are, basically marketing is a form of education, by the way, too. And
what I see in what I could say, actually, not so abstract and so generic, actually, but what I see actually, especially with those buzzwords, and this I kind of understand where Benjamin comes from. There is a lot of hype and buzz and blah blah blah, but I think it will stay. That's an evidence, actually. It will stay. What we see now, there are some fears in what I see on the daily. They want to be educated. They want to know. They don't know what they want, but they want to be there, actually. You know, it's like any changes. You know, the Web 2, social media, it was the same story. Web 1, it was the same story. Web 3 is the same story. Wow, suddenly something new. We don't know what we really want to do. And this is, Benjamin, I understand the precision and the detail. You must have a strategy, actually. So, but there is some fear, some necessity for education, and there will be probably the big fear I see if we again talk about AI. It's the job displacement. Actually, am I gonna be replaced, or am I gonna be augmented with those tools? Actually, you know, that's the fear I see, and that's where most of the consultants sell training programs and stuff like that, because basic ones, prompting, LLM, ChatGPT, whatever, what you can do, stuff like that. But I think in the end, actually, what can corporations, SMEs, especially SMEs, and I tend to think in terms of SMEs, medium caps, and startups, actually, The challenge would be working on your data. You've got a vast amount of data. It's not really structured if you want to create a program, and maybe creating slowly, steadily a maturity model of an AI or innovation maturity model, actually, something like that, actually, step by step, actually, with the different steps, actually. That's what I see, actually. Now, if AI, blockchain, and metaverse are going to converge, and in 10, 15 years, I don't know. And guys, you need to have data scientists, virtual immersive experiences, branding specialists, metaverse, whatever. Wow, that's in terms of labor and skills, that's going to be wow. But I don't know. I don't know I don't know if I'm not predicting the future. That's my vision.
Yeah, no, that's Benjamin's job, right? Predicting the future, for example. So
Yes.
yes, that is. And so for you, Benjamin, I know we talked about kind of grade school, which is a great idea, but like current environment, where would you approach this to make an impact, even small, maybe can replicate eventually?
The biggest problem is not to distract people. And if you have ever been in a company, there is 300, 500,000 different topics raining in onto you. And the problem is, for example, right now, everybody is focusing a lot on these topics because in the end, let's be honest, blockchain, no company ever would need it. That is something that is another hype, but a lot of people lost a lot of money, a lot of patience, a lot of time in actually dealing with that, because everybody was like, your company needs to do something with decentralized. So the problem is kind of like with this focus and helping people focus on the right topic. Because right now we have a very populist society, and we see that pretty much, we see that from elections, we see that from technology. Everything is kind of like black and white. There is no differentiation anymore. There is no normal discussion anymore. Everything is kind of like AI will replace all jobs. No, it will not. It's actually very, very unlikely that it will do that. It's very unlikely that more than 30% of people are really affected by that. And also these people will not generally change a big portion of their jobs. It's like the secretary when the computer came, right? So we don't have secretaries sitting around and saying like, oh, a computer took my job. So that was not the problem. So there's always a normal job displacement. The cycle for skills are actually shortening. So we actually have from a skill cycle. So back in the days, like 40, 50 years ago, it was about 15 years that you had a skill, and the skill was applicable for 15 years. Right now, we are at about 7.8, 7.9 years, depending on industry or whatever. But in the end, you can say like every 7, 8 years, you either way going to change the job and your profession and your skill set. So having said that, the problem is not actually this. The problem is that we are hyping things and people get distracted. And that is what kills at the moment a lot of businesses, that kills at the moment a lot of resources, because in the end, what really moves the needle for them is sometimes very, very unsexy stuff. And that is housekeeping, that is processes, that is kind of like, do you have even data? Let's start there. Most companies don't even have data. So, and if you have data, do you have clean data? Do you have augmented data? Do you have whatever? So we have so many steps in between before we come to anything that is remotely one of the hype topics at the moment. And I guess when we come to education, the biggest problem is that we need to actually differentiate. And that is where I'm also sitting for a lot of governments between what is a hype topic. We don't need to teach everybody how to do AI. I mean, when did you learn that's how the AI algorithm on your camera works? No photographer in the world knows how the AI algorithm is doing pretty much your picture optimization. We don't need to do that. But what we need to do is actually to teach people skills that are actually longer term and longer term applicable, because critical thinking, reason, and also basic understanding of how data works or how something works. So these basic skills will become way more important. So it's not about teaching them how to prompt, because literally prompting is a machine trying to understand you. So no matter how bad you do it, you can also say like, write me a prompt so I can prompt it. So that is not a skill I need to teach somebody. What I need to teach, and slowly that becomes a problem, is actually basic reasoning. People cannot really write what they want anymore. They cannot even write something. We have a base 2 illiteracy rate of almost 60%. That means like we have slowly people who are having difficulties reading a long text. 60% of people having difficulties reading long text. And we have pretty much also a literacy rate of 20 to 30%, so people cannot even read text anymore. So then who should I teach something if we have pretty much an illiteracy rate in a second degree that is exploding, that people cannot even read or interact anymore? So we have basic problems that are way bigger than actually doing some fancy whatever stuff.
Okay, my thoughts are, because
Yeah.
my thoughts are in terms of education, actually, for myself, actually, because most of the jargon, actually, and what you hear about AI on technologies, it's the Silicon Valley stuff, actually, media machine, actually. I tend myself to read, to extend, and to avoid to have different perspectives, actually. I tend to read philosophers, actually. Eric Salin is a French one with a different perspective, actually. Because after all, actually, it's all created by tech guys, actually, you know. Jeff Bezos, Zuckerberg, all those guys are super tech guys, engineers mentally, you know. The questions that decision makers need to think about, ethics, data privacy, mostly delegation. If we adopt massive AI, actually, what does it mean for a human to delegate, actually, now? Where are we going in terms of delegation, actually, intelligence delegation and stuff like that, actually? Even people are talking about conscience of AI and things like that. That's crazy. Kurzweil, other futurists and stuff like that. That's maybe the social and the impact. That's something to take into account, actually, beyond the Silicon Valley or whatever media burst to create a new market and stuff, because it's recurring, actually. Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, AI, metaverse, it's all to create new markets and needs and stuff like that. But
there is no Web 3, just to say that. Web 3 is actually a marketing term that was coined by the blockchain community. Web 3 is spatial web, and spatial web is not here at the moment. So Web 3 has to do, actually, Web 1 was a professional creates consumables. Web 2 was like you can create and you can consume. And Web 3 is actually create, consume, and experience. And that is actually, a very old term. So Web 3 is not a thing. And it always just cringes me when people use that. Kind of like it, Web 2 is social media and Web 3 is blockchain. No, blockchain was not there. Decentralized databases has been around since 1980s, so there is nothing new around decentralized databases, and it didn't change the world because there is actually an inherent problem into that.
Web3 was created by the co-founder of Ethereum. You know, there was a need of decentralization. The power of Web2 companies, actually, that's a fact. Actually,
no, Web3 was a marketing term that actually was coined.
It is a marketing too catchy, exactly. But you're both right, by the way, which is a great debate going on. I'm loving this. This is what we want.
Well, yeah, but again, the negation of something. Okay, it doesn't exist. It exists. Things like that. I don't know. Yeah, it's a jargon, a buzzy word being used, actually, that tends to reflect something, actually. What is Web3? Some see it as the metaverse, some with a blockchain. By default, I use it. Okay, we can discuss about the term, actually. But the thing,
that's the danger when we're just using, that's what I'm always interfering here. That's the danger when we're just using all these buzzwords. I mean, literally, sorry for being that direct, but you're just throwing in a lot of different buzzwords, sometimes without actually the real meaning.
But Benjamin,
you just combine it in a way where it's kind of like, that it sounds nice, but in the end, there is no content behind it. Because the problem is, and that is one of the biggest problems, what I said, for education. If we just keep on using marketing terms for educating people by FOMO, by people who actually don't know what it really means, we are just actually creating illiteracy, and that is not creating education. That is just.
But Benjamin, have you been involved in a Web3 project? Have you been involved in a blockchain project? I don't think so, honestly.
I am in the blockchain. I was pretty much in like 3 or 4 different governmental bodies on that. I advise on that.
Have you implemented solutions, actually? Worked on implementing
solutions? There are no solutions, and that is actually what I'm telling them. There are no solution. That has never been. The only thing is actually that people are doing pretty much like speculation, like, wow. Great,
no. I'm not talking about speculation. I'm not talking about speculation. I'm talking about layer 2 solutions, deep structural infrastructure solutions. And that's the point, actually. The Web3 jargon and acronym, you're interfering with things that are sincerely not really important and essential, actually, in the discussion, actually. But being involved, that's a necessity to define things. Okay, call it whatever you want if you want. If you don't like it, okay, I understand. What's your issue actually is with all those marketing buzzwords that you don't like,
Yes.
actually, Benjamin.
My issue is that I am paid to be precise. I am paid to actually tell governments what a real thing is and what pretty much a marketing hype is. And that is why I'm very precise when it comes to all of that. And that's why I'm always telling, like, you just throw out the buzzwords like it's nice to
But there is a
sound.
reality
But in
behind
the
it. It's
end,
not
when
just flowing.
you want to talk about
So,
the topic per se, it's very, very
I
important
want,
what you say and how the meaning of it is
I
actually
want to
there.
interject. I actually, so here's what, Benjamin, I actually I want to say in essence, I agree with you because people, I have friends, I worked on blockchain projects at them. They don't even know what Web3 means, right? They just heard it someplace and they're just like using it, not even in the real context, etc. But we do need marketing as well as we need knowledge and education, like guys like you, right? So what is the convergence of that? That actually it starts with like people like you, Benjamin. I'm gonna put the responsibility on people who are actually knowing what they're talking about, and nothing to do with the general audience here, and nothing to do with you, Xavier. You are in the deep of it, from technology to government, because let's be honest, governments regulate still, right? And we need to work with them. So your ideas, how would we make that actionable? And then the marketing of it, responsible marketing, because everybody's talking about responsible AI, responsible. What about responsible marketing? Like what about people understanding what they're talking about before they can talk about this kind of what is the convergence? Like, even if you were to take one project, right? That would be so impactful, because I wish when I was in grade school, middle school, heck, high school, somebody like you guys that was available, who's our audience, by the way, watching next billion, that they would say, oh my God, like if I watch this, I'm like, I want to be that. I want to do that kind of a thing. So what is that one thing? You're absolutely right. Both of you are right. We need marketing. We can't do
No,
without marketing.
no,
And then,
but
but responsible marketing is part of it, but we need the real experts also giving that information to marketing too. So what does
but
that project look like?
marketing is not just jargons, buzzwords, and bullshit, as you say. Marketing,
Oh,
we like to discuss, do we need to create a loyalty program with NFTs, tradable assets, or not? Not about speculation and all the blah, blah, that in the end, Benjamin is criticizing and is extending the media voice, actually. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, do we need, for example, I'm going to implement a reward program in my company. Do I need a layer, blockchain layer, to reward with tradable assets and things like that, dynamic NFTs, or not? That's my question. I'm not saying it's all about that. We need now, precisely because the market is telling you all about NFTs and AI. No, do we need it? Can we need it? What are the possibilities? And how I do progress in terms of that? Honestly, I don't care about the Web3 jargon and buzz and trendy and ChatGPT and LLM and generative and whatever stuff people define that. The gurus of the whatever of the mindset media, whatever stuff, blah blah blah. I use them, okay, but for me that's not the essential thing actually. Voilà.
Mhm. So Benjamin, back to you before we close out. This has been a very wonderful discussion, by the way. I love it.
You got a very passionate.
Oh, no, people agree on it because everybody's so enamored with the latest technology. So this is awesome.
No,
This is
Benjamin
reach
thinks
the
I'm representing the devil, the evil. I'm not. I'm precisely, oh man. When I think about AI, I read philosophers, I read tech guys, I read Zuckerberg, I try to see all the different perspectives and think, what can we do with that actually? What can we do with that? Being conscious that all the storm, all the buzz, all the media, it's the market, it's the Silicon Valley that everybody's repeating again and again and again and again. Wow.
Yeah. So in closing, so let's say, can you put almost a plug-in based on what we've discussed here? Because different approaches, but really valid approaches, by the way, too. So that the others can also either they can follow you on LinkedIn or YouTube, etc. But not that's one channel. But the projects that when we started, you're passionate about, like you want to close out with that. Here's what I'm going to do, or here's the next step, kind of a thing. Could you give the summary and also give hope to the future generations that are watching this as well.
Mm,
Go ahead,
for you,
Benjamin. We'll start
Benjamin.
with you.
And
What
let
Xavier
me start with that. So pretty much giving hope. I mean, that is one of the most asked questions, actually. Technology is always overhyped in the short term and underestimated in long term because humans cannot think exponentially. So something that I can really tell everybody is like AI will not change the world, blockchain will not change the world, and metaverse will not change the world. It's a gradual process. We will adapt to it because technology is not setting the pace. Funnily, actually, the adoption of the user is setting the pace. So if it overwhelms you, it cannot be disseminated. It's a very simple thing. So if nobody uses it, it cannot actually overroll you. Yes, you can be pretty much at the main wave. You're not an early adopter. If your business, you want to be an early adopter, right, to actually float on the wave, but sometimes you also just sink in the wave. But in the end, nobody is overwhelmed because technology can only go as fast as the humans can use it or reuse it. Let's put it much simple in this way. So there is not actually a big thing happening that the technology will be overrolling you and suddenly you are in the world which is not there. That is only the media creating it in a big world. So also if you want to say kind of like between marketing and real world stuff. So the real world stuff is we need to be actually observing the take up, and every technology has a take up rate. And then we have the marketing, which always overpromises, and actually that is a different narrative, right? You want to overpromise because you want people to get excited because you want their money. So marketing has a total different thing. When I'm speaking about technology, people pay me to be precise, to actually do that in the future. When I'm being paid as a marketer, I tell them everything kind of like, yeah, it's disruptive, it's innovative, buy that for that. So
You were
the
Xavier.
underlying principle is very different. But when we really speak about the future, I guess something that is really cool when we have more explainability in our world. So IoT is opening way more measurability. We can measure our world, we can improve the world. And that's the same, for example, what we do with more digital insights. We measure a company. So we help you to actually improve your company because you have an insight you didn't have before. And that is there because of technology. And I guess this is a really good thing because the more explainable a thing becomes, the more easier it becomes actually for you to be tactile, to be manipulatable. Because if you don't know what is going on, it's always like you're in a vacuum and then it's hard to navigate and everybody is just shouting at you with some marketing messages and you're just jumping left and right and kind of like, what is going on? But if you know it and if you can actually structure it and if you can also iron out a little bit this hype cycle in a way that you say like, yeah, I have time. It's not, I can start small, I can do something now. Let me just do a tiny curve for myself. I'm gonna do a little bit here, I'm gonna try a little bit there. But for me, actually, I have this underlying factor. So as a company, you need to work on this underlying uptake, right? So you need to improve your processes. You need to work on your people and culture. The culture is changing, for example. Technology changed our culture. So you need to adapt to that. And these are all the underlying things you need to work on. Technology is kind of like just a cherry on top. And I can really give everybody this message that they should really focus maybe 10% of the time on the hype stuff and 90% of the time on the underlying factors. That really creates a lot of things. And that's the same also for education. We can learn about what AI is, but I can learn about AI maybe, I don't know, 1 week and then I'm done. I know pretty much everything, how all these models work. But to actually prepare myself for the future is way more important that I have my basic skills there. Reading and writing, that's one of the basic things to start. Because we don't just have a digital divide, we have a societal divide. And technology is not going to solve that because if nobody can use technology out of, I don't have an internet connection, I cannot write, I cannot read, then we create a very big digital divide and then we also create a very big societal divide. And that's coming to the philosophical thing also. How far are we actually using this digital divide to our advantage, because that's pretty much where big corporations make their money with, because they're increasing actually the digital divide. That's a very interesting principle you need to think about. So that's pretty much the closing remark there.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Makes
How
sense.
about you, Xavier?
Well, yeah, well, for me, there's societal really challenges actually with those emerging technologies, especially AI. There's many concerns actually. in this purpose of delegation, massive delegation or interaction with robots or whatsoever. Actually, talking about marketing, actually, that's amazing, because Benjamin thinks I'm the voice of the Silicon Valley, and I'm very critical. I've got some criticism. I personally think we are now in the platform capitalism era, actually. And I think when I see TikTok is purely dopamine, actually, for the future generations. Even LinkedIn is getting there, actually. My question is, so you can see I'm not the voice of the Silicon Valley, of this market that absolutely wants you to be dopamine, actually, just thinking you're doing something and you're not doing anything, actually. The TikTokization, that is, for me, as potential dangers, actually, because I've got a son, you know, I'm thinking about it, actually, where marketing could go instead of dopamine, instead of getting hysterical people about the latest trend, things like that, bring really value about the product, ethics, and stuff like that, actually. That would be interesting to see, actually, if we can
it's not happening because marketing works on dopamine. That is the thing. And marketing only works when it actually creates a kick. And dopamine is the one learning hormone that is always in our brain. So pretty much humans are dopamine driven, either negative or positive amplitudes. So marketing will always need to create something positive in dopamine. And pretty much everything we do is creating dopamine. If you meet people, if you're listening right now it's actually creating dopamine, because it was like, oh, there's something new that is creating dopamine. That is actually why it does. And that is actually what marketing tries to do, because most effective marketing is actually creating the biggest cognitive dissonance, and that is actually creating the biggest dopamine amplitude. So that has to do with these factors. So that is actually human behavioral economics.
Indeed, I cannot disagree, but that would be interesting if, other than dopamine, actually, ethical and bringing value, creating value about the product, actually, that you're sending out.
Absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely. Okay. This has been a very passionate, very inspiring conversation, I must tell you. It's one of the probably most memorable ones for me. Really different approaches, but great, absolutely. And thank you both, and for not only being leaders in your subject matter, and also making the time and giving this opportunity to others that are going to be watching this over and over again. Like I said, I'm going to close. I wish I had role models like you guys when I was, learning new stuff when I was in school. So thank you again. And thank you to our audience. That we'll see you on the next episode. Have a great day.
Thanks for the opportunity, Yasmin. Thanks, Benjamin. It was really super interesting to have a different perspective. Really, I appreciate it a lot.
That's unfortunately me. That's the stupid guy in the room asking stupid questions.
Okay.
Not at all. You did well.
Take care, you both of you. Take care.
Yes, thank you, guys. Take care.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, Talin.
Bye-bye. Benjamin.